Hey everyone, checking in on USMJ, a bunch of names here: GWPH, CURA, IIPR, GTII, CWeb, GGB, MRMD, KSHB, CVSI, OHHA, who's that? HARV, CL, Medmen, IAN, TRUL, and LHS. So we'll start on the daily time frames and we'll work our way in from there. And GWPH, the granddaddy of the USMJ sector, with continuation this week seeing higher highs. So the uptrend on the daily time frame continues, higher lows and higher highs. It is a bearish reversal candlestick on the daily time frame from Friday, but if we lose the hourly uptrend, all that means is we're looking for a higher low compared to 137.17. Zooming in to look at the hourly time frame, we can see that we did lose it at the end of the day. So keep an eye out for the potential of further consolidation on the daily time frame, but as long as it holds 137, the bulls keep control. The hourly, or I should say the weekly time frame, has a bounce that's correlated pretty significantly with the S&P 500. The low is at the same time, and we've seen a higher low every single week for the last 2 months, just like it's S&P 500 as well. The next resistance zone that we're looking at is 152.28 up here, and you can see that we did break that level this week, but could not close above it. So keeping an eye at that resistance level and watching to see if the daily uptrend can be maintained. Again, reminder, I know I've been saying it for a couple weeks now, but when the S&P 500 consolidates on the weekly time frame, that's going to be very telling in terms of how the MJ sector responds to that. And I do believe that we will see further consolidation when that does take place. So if you're looking for longer term positions or swing positions, just be aware that everything that we've seen happen in the MJ sector for the last 2 months has been in an absolute ideal scenario with the S&P 500 strength. And when that changes, we will likely see some further weekly consolidation in these names as well, especially the ones that have not consolidated yet. We have a handful of names that have already established higher lows on the weekly time frame, but some names like GWPH have not. CURA, daily uptrend, anything above 875 is a higher low. We topped out here at 1068 and pulled back, and now we have a daily inside bar from Friday. If the daily inside bar breaks bearish at 982 on Tuesday, then we'll look for further consolidation, and the bulls will have to form a higher low compared to 875. If it breaks bullish and we get over 1020, we're looking right back at 1068, the recent high. You can see the daily exponential 12-period moving average has held every support test, keeping this uptrend intact. So we'll be watching that level as well in case it is a bear break. If we were to close under that, we would mark that as a bit of a red flag. But looking at the weekly time frame, we did establish a higher low and continuation here, and we're on the verge of all-time highs, so certainly has our attention as long as this daily uptrend remains intact. So daily inside bar for Tuesday. IIPR got added to the S&P 600, which is a small cap list. I believe that's where this volume's coming from. It's very massive volume the last 2 days, and we're watching for the potential of a head and shoulders pattern that we have to be careful of with the left shoulder. That would be the head, and then if we bounce and cannot break the all-time high of 68.21, then we would look for a potential of that pattern playing out. The confirmation of that pattern would be the loss of the daily uptrend when we would break this neckline of support down at 59.56. So if we can't break to a higher high and we roll over and break 59.56, we clearly lose the daily uptrend. We will then zoom out to the weekly and look for weekly consolidation, and again, have not really consolidated on the weekly time frame since that end of December bounce, and 2 months in a row of straight upside with those all-time highs. So getting a little bit toppy at these levels. We'll see if we can get a break of 68.21 to keep the all-time high party going. GTII, pretty significant pullback from its big bull move. So we're looking for a daily higher low to form in the near-term future. Looking at the hourly chart, 1769 is a key support test. Look at this little double low between 69 and 71. On Tuesday, if we break that level, we zoom out to the daily and we look for the higher low on the daily to form perhaps around the exponential 12-period support. If the bulls are able to hold 1769, a break of 1870 would change that hourly trend and would tell us our daily higher low has been established. We're keeping an eye on GTII as the bulls have made a very impressive weekly higher low and higher high. This consolidation right now is on pretty decent volume, but nothing stands out as a major red flag. So keep an eye on the hourly time frame and see if the bulls can change the trend back in their favor. Otherwise, we're looking down at that daily exponential support as the next level to be watching. CWeb tightening up with a nice little equilibrium on the daily time frame with the high, low of the pullback, lower high, held support with a higher low, another lower high up here. And if you want to use, this all depends on how much risk or reward you want. If you want to act on the earliest signals, you're acting on a 1967 bear break. If you want to give it a little bit more space, you're acting on 1916. For bullish, you're entering on a break of 2081 if you want higher risk, higher reward, or you could enter on the break of 2030, the high of the day. It all depends on which signal you're going on, how short term. Are you reacting on an hourly trend change? Are you waiting for the daily lower highs to break? And that's going to determine which signal you use if you are looking for an entry. So looking at the hourly time frame, we can see things have gotten a little bit tight. We're heading down towards this support, and 2030 is a resistance that stands out on the hourly time frame. A break of that level would be bullish, and it's all about 1967 support. Weekly time frame for CWeb is already in weekly consolidation, and we're absolutely looking for a healthy higher low to form. And I will be interested in a CWeb entry. If we do get a bear break of 1901, I will start to scout for a higher low on the weekly chart in the lower $18 range. GGB, potential bear break is incoming on GGB because we did lose the daily uptrend here. We had 470 as support, higher low of 540, and then we had another higher low up at 558, and we broke 558 at the end of the day on Friday. So if we break 540 early this coming week, then we know the daily uptrend is lost, and that's going to give us a weekly equilibrium. And the pattern on the weekly is our all-time high, our low of the pullback, and then our inability to see continuation. So that looks like our lower high at $6. So if we do lose that support level on the daily, we're going to come down and look for a higher low on the weekly compared to 470 and for this range to tighten up. And those weekly equilibriums are nice when they get tight because they give some nice clear signals. So break 540 and zoom out to the weekly and look for the weekly higher low to be established. MRMD is pretty much flat across over the last 2 weeks of trading. 379 is the most important support. And for me, the most important resistance is 415 and 422. And again, it's the same thing. We have shorter term resistances we can react on. We could react to 408 breaking as a bullish signal, but we would have to ensure that 415 and 420 would have to break in follow through of that. And as far as support goes, it's 387 and 379. Looking at the weekly time frame, trying to form that weekly higher low with an inside bar, have to break that inside bar bullish for us to say, all right, our weekly higher low has been established and we're ready to head back up into the mid $4 range. KSHB has also been a little bit choppy here on the daily time frame, but it looks like a key support is on the verge of breaking. That support is 561, and we broke it on Thursday down to 555, but not a whole lot of follow through. So we have our high of the bull move, low of the pullback, lower high was 619, and we did get just barely into a lower low there. So looking at it on the weekly time frame, that weekly lower high might already be set. So I'm watching for the inside bar on the weekly time frame here. 555 is a double bottom the last 2 weeks. So bulls really want to hold that support level, and we have to break the clear daily lower highs. Anything under 619 is just a lower high here. But if KSHB is able to change this daily trend this next coming week, the weekly time frame will be looking for continuation back into the upper $6 range, and keeping an eye on KSHB this year as it is fairly close to its all-time high. Took a big hit when it had its potential dilution news with raising funds, but seemed to have a nice recovery from that at this point. CVSI, daily bounces taking place. So the long-term range we have is 405. Turning my magnet on. So 405 all the way up to 570, all the way back down to 451. And now the bulls are trying to bounce, and we're going to look to set a lower high. And the question is, has that lower high been set yet? And we have a tightening hourly pattern to be watching. If we lose, let's see, the daily inside bar is what to be going off of. If we break 480, then our daily lower high is set at 510, and we'll look for a pullback, and the bulls must hold 451 for a daily higher low. And if we see a bull break of the double top at 509 and 510, that tells us our daily lower high has not been set yet. So how that inside bar breaks on Tuesday, if it breaks on Tuesday, is going to tell us whether this bounce has topped out yet or not. And this bounce is not very convincing. It's on declining bull volume. We did not get back to the midway point of this pullback. And looking at it on the weekly time frame, we're trying to form this weekly higher low, but we need to change that daily trend for us to be confident that that has taken place. Because if we drop down and see just a lower low, then that tells us further weekly pullback is coming. It's a nice little higher low at this point on the weekly chart. Remember, we had this weekly equilibrium that broke bullish, and then we consolidated. So keep an eye out for this weekly higher low being established and for the weekly uptrend to try and remain intact. OH, struggling a little bit here in the mid $9 range. So we got the high of $9.90. The low of the pullback was $8.21. Lower high was up at $9.68. Higher low of $8.97. And that's the range that we're watching right now. There's another support mixed in there of $9.11. So most important resistance is $9.68, and we topped out at $9.63 on Friday. And if we see a break of $9.11, we lose this daily higher low pattern. So $9.11 is the most important support in the short term. And if we can get that break of $9.68, we're looking back up at $9.90. And wouldn't be surprised to see some weekly consolidation after a 2-month bull move and a V-shaped recovery. And there is a ton of volatility on the weekly chart here where we pulled back over 50%, and then we saw a bounce of almost 100%. And we'll see if it's going to give us just a big, long, drawn-out equilibrium. This is one of those charts that lines up with the S&P 500 having not consolidated since the end of December bounce. So if the S&P 500 consolidates, that would likely increase the chances that a long, drawn-out weekly equilibrium is going to take place into the spring. Depends on how that weekly inside bar breaks. If it breaks bearish, odds of the weekly equilibrium will increase. HARV. So this one hasn't been trading for too long, and we're up at all-time highs. The bulls are trying to stay in control with a healthy little bull flag right now. If we look on the weekly time frame, it is a bearish reversal candlestick, and we have run a huge amount, over 100% in the last 2 months. So we do have to be cautious here. And we did lose a couple support levels on Friday. Bulls did buy that dip, so it is possible to keep in control. Again, look at the exponential support. It's held on its way up, and we tested it again and held it Friday. So key resistance is the all-time high at 1120. If the bulls can break that, obviously we'll see continuation. Support, I'm looking down at 1028 and then down to 962 as an important level. And because this is thinly traded, there's a lot of volatility in there. That pullback, some of these candlesticks, we went from 1070 to 962 just in one day. That's a 10% range in one day. So that's a lot of volatility. Tells us it's thinly traded. So if we can hold 1028 next week, the bulls keep control. If we break 1028, we're looking for weekly consolidation. CL, this is another one. There's not a whole lot of recent trading, but this was a beautiful equilibrium where we had our high, low, lower high, higher low, inside bar, tightening range, bull break on a big spike in bull volume to a new all-time high on Friday. And we consolidated Friday afternoon, so looking for an hourly higher low to form. But this is worth keeping an eye on as long as the bulls keep the uptrend, as it is in blue sky breakout, which is the ideal scenario. 973 is the most recent daily higher low, and actually I take that back. 982 is the most recent level. So as long as 982 holds, the daily uptrend remains intact. Resistance is 1062 and 11 psychological. MedMen on the daily chart is trying to change this trend after the big time bear break and loss of the uptrend. And this is probably one of the weaker USMJ names that you're going to find with all the drama surrounding management and all that they've been having to deal with. So we have the low of the pullback. The high of the bounce was up at 393. And now the bulls are looking to form a daily higher low at 368 and have to break 393 to change this daily trend. If the bulls are able to pull that off, this weekly chart's all choppy because we lost the uptrend in the daily time frame and the weekly time frame. And again, you're not going to find many MJ names that have done that at this point, but MedMen is one of them. So they have a lot of proving to do to try and regain momentum in their favor. And I am not going to be a believer anytime in the near-term future. Need to see a weekly uptrend before that's the case, and that's not going to happen anytime soon. So at this point, the bulls are just doing everything they can to defend support, 346, and then the all-time low 311. So worth keeping an eye on, as it is one of the major players in the U.S., but they better get their act together if they want to remain in that spot. IAN, conversion of shares going through with the merger of MPX. A lot of people getting their MPXI shares. A lot of people in the US have not gotten them yet, so be aware that we could still see some selling pressure on MPXI once those do become free trading. But a solid bounce on Friday. We did lose the daily uptrend on, well, actually, let's take that back. We did not lose the daily uptrend because the higher low was 670 for the bulls to maintain. And then we saw continuation to a higher high all the way up to 777. And then this is all the same pullback period where we didn't break that support. So 670 holds the daily higher low. We held it by 677, and then a significant bull move on Friday with solid volume behind it. So 734, 754, and 777 are the three resistances to be watching. And the only way we're going to lose this daily uptrend is if we top out, can't break resistance, and then roll over and break 677, because that's our new daily higher low, keeping the uptrend intact at this point. So if we lose that level, clearly weekly consolidation will be underway. This is another name that's pretty much marked the S&P 500 with the low at the same time and the bounce for 2 months. But the daily uptrend is still intact at this point. I do hold, well, technically I haven't gotten my IAN shares yet, but I will be a holder of IAN once that conversion goes through, and I don't have a plan on selling it at this point. TRUL. So here's another one that's close to losing this daily uptrend. 1535 is that support level. And look at Thursday and Friday, just barely holding that support. So if we break 1535, we're looking down at 15, or make that 1454 as the next support level, and lose 1535, and that clearly tells us that weekly consolidation is underway. Again, yet another name that's marked with the S&P 500 low and 2 months of bounce. And if we consolidate, a weekly higher low will be healthy, and it's a potential cup and handle pattern where we have resistance here of 1749, unable to break resistance. And if we see a weekly bull flag and then a breakout, that's worth keeping an eye on. But first things first, we would have to break 1535 in order to see the start of that weekly consolidation and hopeful handle and bull flag for the bulls. LHS established a new support level. Remember, we had the bull break of the little double top of 113 and 114. We pulled all the way back down to 103, but we still have the uptrend intact on the daily time frame. We held 103 multiple times, and now we have to see the bulls break 112 to change this daily trend back in their favor after a week of sideways consolidation. If we break 112, we're looking up at 119 as the next level, and you can see the weekly time frame with our higher lows and higher highs still intact, and a weekly inside bar forming last week. So a lot of weekly inside bars out there. We have some strong names near blue sky breakout. We have a bunch of names still holding their daily uptrend. We have some names that have lost their daily uptrend and are seeing weekly consolidation. And we have some names that are on the verge of losing their daily uptrend to start weekly consolidation. So a lot of different setups, a lot of different plays out there in terms of, traders can be jumping around to the stronger names, and people looking for entry are waiting for weekly consolidation before comfortable, because again, I'll say it again, the S&P 500 has not consolidated yet. And when it does, I do believe that that's going to be a catalyst for weekly consolidation on a lot of these names. They can absolutely hold up better than the S&P 500 depending on what that consolidation looks like. But seeing how many names have the same end of December low and 2 month bull move on the weekly time frame, that tells me they're strongly correlated to the S&P 500. So it absolutely is a factor that we need to be paying attention to. Hope you have a good rest of your weekend. We'll continue to check back in next week. No trading Tuesday for both the US and Canada, so shortened week. And I'll see you then.